Oh, wow, this is a widescreen. Okay, that's interesting. All right, I'm supposed to wait a few seconds. All right, testing, sound test. And away we go. Get a closer view here. There we go. That's a nice start. And hi there. Welcome everybody to Cast Iron Wednesday. This again is a weekly YouTube live show that I've been doing each Wednesday night as part of a tradition that many of the YouTube cooking channels have been doing. We have a Cast Iron Wednesday where again we talk about and play with cast iron. And why not? Because it's a lot of fun, of course. And so because this is cauldron season, well, I decided to bring out my largest cast iron cauldron here for this show. So for that matter as well, it's also kind of like as a way of making up for last week where unfortunately we had technical problems. It seems like there was some video problems and sound problems. And I hope to have taking care of that this week. So hello everybody. Hello, sound is better than the unboxing bit. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, Val. I'm glad to hear you folks can hear me. And Cast Iron Fanatic and William Hurt. Hello, Nana. My grandmother was Nana, and so that's the first thing I think of. William Hurt, Jose Latios, and hello everybody, and welcome once again to my channel. Well, yeah, because as I said, I'm trying to make up for the poor quality of last week's video because not only, it looks like we've got a better stream, and I'm glad to hear my mic is doing well. In addition to all this, I am also running on a newer video cam. I upgraded my cam because I really was not happy with the picture quality I've seen, especially the last couple of weeks. And so, of course, it's also a nice way to, I don't know if we could call it christening, but I guess introduce this cam with a shot of the 15-gallon cast iron cauldron that I am so proud to own here. Also, let's see, this camera's got a really wide angle screen too, a really wide view, and I'm liking that a lot. I mean, there's a lot of area in this, which means we've got a good shot here. Yeah, but as I said before, this is my 15-gallon 200-year-old cast iron cauldron that comes from Philadelphia. That is definitely a prized possession, and right next to it is an unknown cast iron cauldron that I think also comes from the 19th century that I managed to score at an antique mall in Bedford, Massachusetts on my birthday several years ago. So both of which means that these are kind of special to me. I'd also like to start out by, well, again, getting some cooking ready, and doing that, we'll move into another cauldron that we've considered to be a favorite, and that, of course, would be the South African poiki here. This one especially is, even though it's modern, it's a modern day cauldron, I guess you could say. A lot of people like these in particular because of their shape, because of the way they look like medieval style cauldrons. And so this is one that I'm happy to own. And I just realized, good grief, it's 2022, the year 2022. That means this is actually the 10th anniversary of my owning this this poiki here. Yeah, because I actually used it, I remember, on a special camping trip I took in the summer of 2012. So I've actually had this in my collection for 10 years. Wow. I realize I'm going to be getting into a lot of 10-year anniversaries for a number of my cast iron here. And this one I've been heating up for several minutes or so that we can actually get some cooking done. Because as I mentioned before, I want to make a dish that I really like, I really enjoy, that also comes from South Africa, the maker of this poiki, and that is bunny chow. I have done that one before on this channel, so as if you've seen this before, then you know that this is a dish that I pretty much fell in love with because it's so easy and tasty, and it's something that really should become popular in the United States. At least I hope so. Yeah, boy, look at the wide angle on this. I mean, this is going to take a little bit of getting used to, I think. I've got so much room here in this picture. Yeah, I mean, this camera here is only a few inches away from the top of the pot, so I'm actually quite happy with that. Having said that, though, let's right now. I guess I have to turn on the fan. I hope that doesn't drown out the sound. If this causes sound problems, please let me know, and I'll see what I can do to compensate for that. But yeah, bunny chow is a South African dish that it's one of those newer dishes, kind of like Vietnamese pho, that was put together by immigrants to the country and has since been caught on like wildfire down there. That's why I would like to see this served in the U.S. as well. It is essentially a chicken curry stew. And it's isn't these supposed to be about cast iron? Well, that's exactly what we're doing here, Jeffrey Neely. We are cooking in a cast iron poiki from South Africa, and I can tell you a little bit about this as we get this thing. Oh, well, I'm glad you like the camera. As we get this dish together here, as I mentioned, this one has taken off like wildfire in South Africa, and again, it's a chicken curry. So, which is a nice potion to make in a cast iron cauldron like this. So, got to get started here because I don't want to take too long just standing here talking, and that just simply means getting out. I might want to turn this heat up a little bit. In fact, there we go. We will get this. We will get this ready. Have our oil. And with that, we start out with some chicken. We've got about 2 to 3 pounds of chicken here, which is one reason why I like cooking in a big cast iron pot, because even though there's 2 or 3 pounds of chicken here, there's plenty of room in there. Now, these are some chicken breasts. They were bone-in chicken breasts with the skins on that I got at the supermarket, but it was, of course, easy enough to simply strip it, to simply remove the skin, save some money that way. I have a friend who commented about how he hates chicken breasts because they're essentially calls them a tasteless part of the chicken. I don't know about that, but I do know that it is when they're properly flavored. That is, chicken breast is quite a fine piece of chicken, and one that I'm certain will find missing. Anyway, all we have to do right now is get the chicken so that we've browned the sides here. We don't need to thoroughly cook it because that's what we're going to be doing in the stew. In that case, I better just leave this alone for a few minutes. And if you're asking about the cast iron, well, as I mentioned already, this particular pot here is from was actually made in China and imported into South Africa, because these poikis here are quite popular, as I mentioned, in South Africa. However, unfortunately, there are no cast iron manufacturers left in South Africa that make these anymore. So all of them are made in China, and one of the most popular one is this brand here, the Best Duty brand, and then imported into South Africa, and then from there imported to other countries, including the United States. So the most famous South African maker of cast iron poikis was Falkirk. A company that lasted from the early 20th century up until, unfortunately, just the 1980s to 1990s, when they finally folded and went out of business. So we look for Griswold cast iron here in the United States, whereas in South Africa, the collector's name defined as Falkirk. And why not? Because, after all, they made some really good quality pots. On the other hand, there's nothing. I have had no complaints whatsoever about this pot here, even if it was made in Asia. It's big, And it has a different size marking than we see here in the United States. In that, let me pull out the lid here. As I mentioned, this has the Best Beauty brand, and this is a number 3 size poiki, which means in this case, yeah, they have size numbers ranging from 1/2, which is maybe about a one pint size, and then growing very quickly, so that this is a number 3 size, and the number 3 is actually 8 liters in size, or just about 9 quarts in size. So this can take a lot of stew. That's one reason why I really like using these things. It's also very thick and very heavy. It's probably almost certainly heavier than a Dutch oven made in the USA or China, for that matter, that you might typically see. So I saw a video recently. Someone from South Africa was talking about cooking in a poiki. Oh, by the way, notice how I'm pronouncing it poiki, because that is actually the way they pronounce it out there. I've actually, even though the spelling of this looks like it's spelled pudgy, Potjie. I have long since been corrected by folks in South Africa who say that no, it is actually, they pronounce it poiki, and so that's why I call it that. But anyway, I saw a video recently about these poikis here, and supposedly the design here actually helps to indicate the number of people that you can feed when you cook in this thing. At least allegedly. I don't know if this is scientific. Well, I suppose it can be as accurate as you want, because okay, what do we have here? The soap removed it. Oh, did somebody season it? Yeah, William Brown. I seasoned my cast iron number 6 4 times with grapeseed oil at 500 for an hour. After cooking eggs, I lost a good bit of my seasoning. I'm thinking, I've heard this happen with some people. Apparently, it's like even if you go too high over the smoke point, apparently that causes the seasoning to break down, so that even though it does carbonize, it does burn on a layer of seasoning, apparently it doesn't hold as well. So I have actually never seasoned my cast iron with grapeseed oil. Not that I don't like it, I just never have. So I can't really comment much about grapeseed oil. I mean, my favorite is still Crisco and also beeswax, or a combination of Crisco and beeswax, which is what they have in those commercial seasonings like Fuzzy Wax or or other cast iron seasonings, or Crisby, for instance. And yes, several years ago, I did season some of my cast iron with flaxseed oil. It looked great until after anywhere between 6 months to a year or so, the seasoning started flaking off. So that was my last time using flaxseed oil. On the other hand, the seasoning in this pot here seems to be holding up pretty well, because this chicken here looks nice and clean, and I don't see, oops, it's also steaming up. And I don't see any little pieces of seasoning flaking off into this. So I think we are doing pretty good at this point here. The audio sounds pretty tinny. Okay, let me turn off the vent fan. Okay, because I think we're past the point now where the smoke detector could go off. Now that I have turned off the vent fan on the stove, I'm hoping that improves the quality of the audio here. It's probably because that was a loud fan, and it probably was drowning everything else out here. Flaxseed is pure poison for cast iron. No, it really isn't, actually. Okay, we're good now. Okay, glad to hear that. Thank you very much. Dawn takes grease out of anything. Yeah, I actually learned Dawn is a really good dish cleaner, and I definitely swear by it for cleaning my dishes. No, I don't clean my cast iron with soap, by the way. Yes, you can clean your cast iron with soap. Because soap is actually a pretty mild degreaser. On the other hand, I generally don't, largely because I have very little need to. So what was I saying before? Oh yeah, about these poikis here. These particular ones have these lines here on the side. They are evenly spaced out, and they're not just there for decoration. Allegedly, you can multiply the size number, which in this case is a number 3, by the line that you load the food up to, and that's the number of people you can serve. So that 3 times the first line, if you fill your poiki with this much food, you can serve 3 people, 6 people, 9 people, 12 people, at least allegedly. But then again, I mean, considering that, you know, serving size is not an exact science, I'd say you can make that about as accurate as you want. So anyway, that's okay. So we finally have gotten past the first part here, namely browning the chicken, which means now we can move on. Let me get this recipe right here. No, I don't have my recipes memorized. That's what I have my website for. But nonetheless, okay, number of recipes. On the pot is good and hot. Add chicken pieces and stir fry them until the outsides. Okay, good. Now here's where we just start simply adding our additional stuff. So let's get this back up to a higher level here. And from here, yeah, because that way we can get a better view of the pot. Wow, as I said, I definitely need to get used to this new wide angle camera. I'm impressed. Boy, that's for sure. Okay, for the record, the camera is a Logitech Brio, B-R-I-O, which apparently is a very popular webcam, and this is my first time trying it. All right, now from here, all we have to do is throw in some onion. Mix that together. And also some ginger and garlic, which I'm supposed to have minced some garlic and some ginger, but unfortunately I find I still don't have that, and I need to get some at the store. So I'm going to have to suffice, I'm afraid, with some ground ginger and ground garlic. Pop. Yeah, I'm not afraid of using the dry spices. I know most of these cooking channels here, it's like you always use fresh ingredients. How dare you use the dried ingredients? Well, you do what you have to sometimes. I mean, that's simply a fact. Although it is easy enough to get minced garlic, and I'm a little mad at myself for not doing that. But still, there we go. Then from here, okay, until at this point, we'll just do this for a couple of minutes until these onions are brown, and then come the real spices. This is a curry stew, and it comes from Indian immigrants to South Africa. So you can better believe we've got your typical Indian spices here, including which would be the sea spices. We've got curry, coriander, cumin, cardamom, cayenne, oh, and cinnamon as well. All of the sea spices are going to go into this. So this is definitely going to be a nice tasty stew here. Anyway, once we got everything together and this thing is just nicely stewing and bubbling away, then yes, I will be talking some more about cast iron. Don't worry. You see, in my case here, from the beginning, the cooking has really been what I've found to be most important here. I realize that it's like the cast iron itself is very popular, especially here on YouTube. I've done videos just about washing cast iron that have gotten several thousand views, and I'm thankful very much for that. But I still like the cooking. I mean, that's really the whole point here. I don't just want to, keep my cast iron on display and never actually use it. I mean, I started this channel really so that I'd have an excuse to rotate through my collection and try to get as much use out of my pieces as possible. So, as well as to have fun. And yeah, oh yeah, this is definitely, I'm feeling the heat on this. Remember, I've said enough times about the first time something on a gas stove. This is my first time using the poiki on a gas stove, and I'm liking it so far. So from here, yes, and hello. They cut something. I live by dawn. Don't suds up like it used to. Nothing seems to be like it used to. I don't know if part of it is just our memories, or just that if they have made some change. So, Big Lou is in the house. Hello, Big Lou. And avocado oil is high temp and good for you. Well, there is that. In regards to these eternal battles over what oil to season your cast iron with or what oil to cook with, I am just simply in favor of doing what works for you. Maybe that's a cop out. Maybe I'm being a wimp, but I mean, what's the point in arguing over it when really it's like you're the one seasoning, it's your cast iron, you're cooking in it, and you're the one Yeah, so really, use the one that you find works best for you. I'm not going to dictate what you do in your kitchen any more than I ask you to dictate what I do in mine. Just wiped down a 12 BSR Spider for the first round in the oven. Well, congratulations, Neches River Catch fishing on finding a BSR Spider. There are a couple, even though the design of the Spider was the same throughout their entire history, there are a couple of they did make a couple of changes to it over the years. Oh, good. It looks like the chicken liquid has evaporated, so we're actually getting into some browning now. Anyway, there are a couple of very slight differences between the older Red Mountain series and the newer Century series, especially about their Camp Spiders. Namely that the older ones, the Red Mountain series, they had raised letters and numbers on the bottom of the spider. The newer ones, the Century series, had the numbers on the bottom were smaller and they were etched into it rather than raised. So that's one way to tell if it's a Red Mountain or not. I'd like to find a Red Mountain as well. I've said enough times before that I have a 13-inch Red Mountain camp oven lid. One of these days, I hope I can actually find the pot to go with it. May never happen, but you never know. Okay, now that we've gotten this far, let's see. Okay, and now at this point, well, really, we just start throwing everything else in at this point. We've got, again, our sea spices plus some smoked paprika. Oh, yeah, that is definitely giving more of a sense to this. I will say that. And then from here, all right, once I do that, and now we mix in. Okay, mix everything together, and now we add some garbanzo beans, which is actually some recipes for the bunny chow have it, some don't. I like it. I like garbanzo beans. They've got a nice, you could almost say meaty flavor. I know vegetarians often use garbanzo as a meat substitute. I don't know about a meat substitute, but I like the flavor and texture of garbanzos myself. And to this, we'll also throw in some diced tomatoes. And yeah, here's the thing. Oh no, I'm putting tomatoes into a cast iron pot. Yes, I am. How about that? If this pot is well seasoned, this will not be a problem. I mean, if I made heavy tomato dishes every single time, it would definitely affect the seasoning. But only if you do it only once in a while and then keep building up the seasoning after that, there's really no problem there. So now that I've got that in, okay. And finally, some potatoes. And there we are. Now this is a nice full pot, and yet even so, it's still only going up about halfway. And that's one reason why, as I said, I like cooking in a big cast iron pot because there's so much room here. That makes me happy. In that there's going to be a lot of food here, and that's good because this is especially for some overnight guests who should be coming to visit in a couple of days. And I know they'll like this because I've made this dish for them before. Oh, I'm definitely smelling those spices now too. So yeah, I'm liking that. Then from here, it's only a matter of throwing in some chicken broth. Yeah, you can tell really this is like one of those dishes that's meant especially for weeknight cooking because this really is not so difficult. Again, all we do is just throw everything together in the pot, and then we're going to stew it for about an hour to an hour and a half, and it will be done. As I mentioned, even though this is called bunny chow, there are actually no bunnies in this dish, as you can see. In this case, I'm using chicken. Lamb is a very popular very popular meat used in bunny chow. Of course, lamb is a lot more expensive than chicken here in the United States, so that's why I'm going with the chicken. That was 1 quart of chicken broth, which looks like it's just about the right amount here. But anyway, as I mentioned, very briefly, bunny chow came from immigrants to South Africa. It seems like over the past few decades, quite a few residents of India emigrated from India to South Africa, especially the Durban area of South Africa. And they set up a lot of their own little food carts and street vendor businesses and the like. And for them, apparently there was a name for those Indian street vendors there, and they called them Bania, B-A-N-I-A. And so really the name stuck, and just by being repeated again and again by many thousands of people with an accent, no less, the name Banya eventually changed to Bunny. So in that area of South Africa, if you're gonna go get a bunny for lunch, this is what you would get. So again, there's no actual rabbit in this, nothing to worry about. And oh yeah, one last thing. We also throw in some flour to thicken the stew. Oh, by the way, notice this. This is a nice little, where did the lid for this go? Here it is. This is a nice little enameled cauldron in itself, a tiny little half-pint enameled cast iron pot. That was a gift a few years ago from my brother. He says he found it at Christmas tree shops, and I guess he says he thought of me when he saw it, so that was very nice of him. Anyway, all we have to do now at this point is let it simmer, which is what I'm going to do. So there we are. We're off to a good start. Tis the season for witches' potions and cauldrons, and really you couldn't add. There are so many tasty and delicious potions you can make in your cauldron here, and this, of course, is only one of them. Now that we've done that, time to cover the pot, turn down the heat a little bit, and let it simmer. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, I'm enjoying this camera here so that we have a view here of the poiki and yet another cauldron. And yes, I actually said cauldron because that's exactly what this is. It is, in fact, a Griswold Dutch oven with what they call the button lid. But really, the name cauldron, quite frankly, if you look in the dictionary, all a cauldron is a big cooking pot. I mean, I know history and tradition and legend and everything like that immediately assumes a cauldron to be related to medieval cooking, and especially with witchcraft, a witch and her cauldron. But any cast iron pot or any cooking pot at all really technically is a cauldron. And of course, I love these modern day cauldrons here, and I have no problem calling this Griswold Dutch oven a cauldron as well. For the record, this is a number 8 size Dutch oven. Another one that I'm actually quite proud of. Oh, the light here, so because the shadow of the camera. Oh, there we go. I think we've got a good view of it now. So, I've got it upside down. My apologies. There we go. That's better. So yeah, this is a large logo Griswold Dutch oven. Yet another, I mean, so many of these cooking tools I call my favorite. Well, I mean, what can I say? It's like I'm proud to own these, and again, I try to get as much use out of them as possible. Yeah, popular. I apologize. Anyway, yeah, like I said before, congratulations as well on that BSR Spider. Going down our Okay. Sint will not be guilty of Mary's little lamb. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Pegtooth. Hit the thumbs up. Yes, that's very nice. Thank you very, very much for everybody who does so. Birria made with goat meat is so good. My wife doesn't like it, but I love it. Oh yeah, goat meat I found to be very tasty. The times I've had it, it's almost like I shouldn't call it sweet, but there's definitely it is not as I don't know what you call it. Savory, I guess, is your typical American meats. So, no innards, no critters. Well, I mean, to each their own. Celine 77. I mean, again, I'm certainly not going to tell you what you can and cannot eat. Um, but of course, I mean, other folks there who who enjoy things like a dirty rice, and I think somebody mentioned it recently in the chat here, know that chicken gizzards actually are a pretty common ingredient made in dirty rice, although you don't have to include them. Likewise, chicken hearts can be pretty tasty in themselves. And as for critters, well, again, there are other folks who might disagree. I mean, I myself have made squirrel and rabbit, and of course, there's even the famous nutria swamp rat. Yeah, I'm sure somebody knew as soon as I mentioned critters, I was going to mention that one, the swamp rat from Louisiana. So, but I mean, but no. Again, we're not going to food shame anyone here. If you don't want to, you certainly don't have to. So, as somebody says, don't eat squirrels. Too cute. I don't like liver, but I like Braunschweiger, if I pronounce that right. Love squirrel. Yeah, there's some farther down south LA mess. I don't eat no rats. Where do you find your good stuff? Everyone at the flea markets near me knows what Griswold and Wagner are. Yeah, tell me about it. I can only find deals on unmarked prices at BSR pans. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can get as well. I mean, every so often I have to say yes, I've somehow managed to do a good score and come across a flea market vendor who really did not know what he was selling. But that only happens once in a blue moon. So I mean, like you said, these days especially, they all know what the Griswold logo is. Not maybe a month or so ago, I went to a church rummage sale, and the employees there, there actually had like a number 3 small logo Griswold skillet, and even then they said, "Oh yeah, that's Griswold. That's a name that we got. Yeah, that's a name that'll sell." And I think they were selling that number 3 Griswold skillet for $15. So, which may or may not be a decent price these days for a Griswold. So, my Griswold here, I managed to score. Oh, here I go again. Almost 10 years ago at Brimfield. I was lucky about that because I found it literally at the bottom of a pile of rusty junk, and this thing was orange with rust. It took a long time and some use of the E-tank to actually clean this thing up. I definitely did not buy this thing brand new. But after restoring it, as you can see, it's turned out to be a wonderful Dutch oven. So Val's Black Cat's Rules. I want to try a goat, just a bit pricey for me. Yeah, there is always that problem, unfortunately. So all you can do is look around and maybe you'll get a bargain one of these days. That's how, for instance, I've actually managed to have venison because, venison cannot be legally sold. But I've had venison, love venison, and we'll go out of my way for some venison if possible. Terry Sinchaf, I think rabbit is stronger than squirrel, but I like both of them. Yes, I have had rabbit stew actually, and it is pretty good, especially when flavored with bacon. But I guess getting back to cauldrons. Estate sales have cast iron cheap sometimes when they don't realize what they're selling. Yes, sometimes that's the clue. It depends on who's managing the estate sales. There are, like everything else, there are companies that are getting into estate sales, and they are like antique vendors and antique malls. They are definitely knowing what to look for and how to price them, unfortunately. But even so, Neches River catfish and just put 40 pounds of venison and smoked sausage in the freezer. And Jose, have a good evening as well. Yeah, wabbit stew. Yes, exactly. But anyway, I had mentioned already cauldrons here because, as I said, yes, any Dutch oven really is a cauldron. Now, I'm not just calling it a cauldron, it really is. It's simply a modern day cauldron, and they redesigned the vintage model, especially to make it more useful and more practical. And I think they did a good job of it, as opposed to the modern, as opposed to the original vintage cauldrons that folks know most often here. Namely, the ones, of course, that are round and have a very distinctive shape to them. Not that they don't continue to sell them. I mean, this, of course, is a large 1 pint. Even they call it a cauldron, although they sell it on their website and their stores as a country kettle. um, but okay. All right. Does anyone have a manufacturer of gem pans? I have one so old and black I can't read the name on the handle. It looks like two names, one above the other. Those 19th century pans, especially the gem pans, are very difficult to identify. Some of them actually do have the initials of the manufacturer on them. I believe of all places, I think that two places on the internet, the Cast Iron Collector and the other one would be the Griswold and Wagner Society. They both have databases of a large number of manufacturers, even from the 19th century, and they might give you some clues on where you might be able to look those up. Again, the name of that is the Wagner and Griswold Society. If you look for that on the internet, on Google, you will find it. They also call themselves WAGs because, yeah, WAGS. All right. It's easy. Yeah, rabbit used to be easy to buy, but it was very good and it's went way up in price. Yeah, Debbie, they had prices of a delicacy now, rabbit. Yeah, doesn't that always seem to be the case? Well, of course, yeah, unfortunately, everything seems to have gone up these days, but that's an entirely different subject. Okay, I guess, as you mentioned here, cauldrons. This one here, I am actually quite happy to own, even though, as you can see, this one does not sit flat. And that's why I think is the reason why I was actually able to score this one for $20 at an antique mall. And that is a really impressive price, I think, especially for an antique mall. So believe me, I couldn't believe it when I came across it either. That's why I felt I had to get it. So, and yeah, I have to say that most likely either it was made to be a hanging cauldron, which is certainly possible, which would also indicate that it is definitely really old, or maybe, and this could also be the case, the legs were broken off or shortened. So maybe that's the other reason why. Nonetheless, this has a very distinctive gate mark on the bottom. It's unmistakable. And furthermore, it has a sprue mark. This is this line that goes down all the way through, which is where the two halves of the mold came together when it was being manufactured. So that plus especially the flat top ears here. This is why I think this is a genuine 19th century cauldron. Maybe even from the 17th, 18th century, the 1700s. Well, I have no way to prove that. But yeah, this is one thing I learned in most instances, not always, but most instances. It seems like in the older cast iron manufacturers up through the later part of the 1800s, they made their pots in pretty typical fashion, even if they were shaped differently. One of which was they gave them these square or cornered or flat top ears here on these these handles on the side here. I'm thinking it's because they were probably much easier to cast than the round ears. Whoops. You even see this on the big cauldron here. This one here that, as I mentioned already. This one here. I'm proud. I was flabbergasted because it actually has the manufacturer mark on it, and so therefore it was much easier to identify. Savory and Company, Philadelphia. And so when I did my research, I found out that the Savory Company lasted from the I think it was the late 1700s until the later 1800s. I don't have much details about the different kinds of pots they produce, and because of that, I'm just going by the law of averages, roughly maybe halfway through their lifespan, and that's why I am calling this to be about 200 years old. So we're talking manufactured maybe somewhere between 1825 to 1850, because I don't see any way that I could be proven wrong. Nonetheless, it's a nice, heavy, thick piece of cast iron, and the ears on this one, good grief, it's at least an inch thick down here, whereas up here it's still probably more than half an inch thick. So yeah, this is one heavy beast here. I weighed this thing a long time ago, and empty by itself, this thing weighs 75 pounds. So moving this thing around is an adventure in itself. I've got to be careful not to injure myself when moving this thing. And I have a few times taken this thing out on the very special occasions to make big pots of jambalaya. And that is something I'm very proud to have done. I've got a couple of videos of it, in fact. If another opportunity comes out to bring this thing out and use it, I'm really looking forward to it. And I can only hope such an opportunity happens at some time soon. But yeah, this was really a once in a lifetime find. So that's why I simply had to jump when I found that. On the other hand, as I mentioned, I'm proud of this unknown cauldron as well, largely because I think it is also vintage. This, in fact, is what I'm going to be using on Halloween night. I'm going to fill this with candy and hang it from a tripod and use this to pass candy out to trick-or-treaters. And I hope there are trick-or-treaters in my neighborhood. Because, yeah, that way they'll be able to get their trick-or-treats from a real cauldron, not those plastic things they sell at the store. So, yeah, I'm kind of happy about that. I didn't want to cook anything after hubby had shake earlier, so he has to snack. Oops, oh well. My dad calls it a thunder jug. The John Tyler book states Dutch oven handles like that date from 1840 to 1860. Do you agree? Well, I would not disagree. I don't see any reason not to. So even though if it means it's still 1840 to 1860, that still makes it my oldest cast iron pot. So yeah, I'm still happy for that. Nuisance. Then chefs started cooking them to cheap. Oh, and then sell for a heap. We're still talking about rabbit. Is that a 10-gallon pot? This is actually a 15-gallon pot. There is on the other side of this, there is a big number 12. So that means it's a number 12 size pot. And based on that, at least according to this company anyway, Savory, that means it's actually, I think it even says 15 gallons right on it. So yeah, that's why, of course, to fill this completely with food is a major project and a major investment in itself. I should mention as well, on Halloween, the day of Halloween, not the night, but during the day, I plan to have some fun during the day, setting up my propane burner outside, getting out my 4-gallon Dutch oven and using that to make a nice big pot of jambalaya. And I think I'll celebrate Halloween in that way. while I briefly considered setting up this pot once again to make a Halloween jambalaya, I realized two big problems. Number one, it's expensive, as I mentioned. To fill this thing up with food, I've got to do somewhere like from 30 to 40 pounds of meat, not to mention all of the other vegetables, and we're talking like at least another 15 to 20 pounds of rice, all of which cost money, unfortunately, especially things like the andouille sausage and so on. Then, of course, there's the question, when it's all cooked, what am I going to do with all that food? Unfortunately, I don't know enough people around here to be able to give all of that food away. So because of that, I'm scaling down a little bit, and I'll only be using a 4-gallon cast iron pot for making jambalaya this Halloween. Oh, gee, that's all. And what else do we have here? Is that 10-gallon pot? Looking further down, make sure he tests often. Yeah, definitely. Oh, it is chicken. Yes. Yes, there is chicken in the pot. And by the way, this thing is bubbling nicely now at this point. So I know this thing is simmering pretty well. And it's safer too. Tests often. You're talking about testing for lead, aren't you? Because yes, I agree. Testing for lead is a good idea. You need to have an all-you-can-eat cauldron party. Yeah, that's certainly a tempting idea. Although, again, there's the cost of getting all that food together. So I don't know. What should I do? Maybe charge, like, I don't know, $1 a bowl or something? I'm betting $1 a bowl would actually make all my money back. I could easily see maybe a $60 investment, if not more, for all of the food, all of the meat, vegetables, and rice that would need to go into this pot. And so, and I could easily get 60 bowls of food out of it. So who knows? Oh, sugar level testing. Okay, you're talking about something else completely. My apologies. Corey Mama made someone time to get even with the brothers. We knew it, but they didn't. Oh, you're talking about, I guess you're talking about like a forbidden dish of some kind. Well, and again, you do what you want. I don't know. I'm not the type of person who would serve pork to someone who is halal, for instance, because no, there's no need to. I mean, unless there was some kind of a personal vendetta, which I'm glad to say I don't have any of those going on these days. Raccoon stew. I'd try it. I have said this before, and I will say it again. I would indeed eat rat if it was properly prepared and cooked. Yes, I would give it a try. And yeah, that includes Louisiana swamp rat. That's probably the only opportunity I'll have one of these days to have rat. So it's only because of my mantra, which I've enjoyed very much because it's helped me to discover many, many really delicious foods. My mantra that I accepted several years ago, as I said before, is like, if I find myself saying, I've never tried this before, I have to try it. And and thanks to that, I've discovered foods from all over the world, from Vietnam, from Russia, China, India, Greece, Brazil, and of course the United States, and even Canada. I mean, I tried Canadian poutine, for instance, and loved it and just had to make it myself. There's so many wonderful things going on in food all around the world, and I'd love to try it. So, John asks, got a set of butter pack pans. Oh, congratulations for that. Best I could say is get some good use out of it. Make it a good investment. I'll eat possum and raccoon before I'll eat bugs. Well, check out my video from a few years ago. You'll see it's called Grasshopper Gravy, where, yeah, I ate bugs. Oh, it's got a fun ending to it, too. So, Daddy went coon hunting every weekend. He sold them to people who ate them. Mama fried them, and he knew, but the brothers and Daddy didn't. I totally, absolutely draw the line at possum, hands down, bar none. Oh, you've never had possum pie then? All right. anyway, besides all of these different kinds of foods, which so far I have not seen anything that I would turn my nose up on, except kidney. I've tried making kidney. I've tried eating kidney. No, it's not for me. But anyway, as I said, here we are. I'm hoping that there are other folks out there as well who've been lucky enough to have their own cauldron. It doesn't have to be a vintage cauldron. I mean, as I said, any cast iron pot, really, you do have a cauldron. Whether you might have a Japanese rice cooker, a nabe, or a kadai from India, which they have as well as their woks. Although I think their woks and their kadais are probably interchangeable, for instance. And of course, all of those cast iron pots for jambalaya that are made in China, yes, and sold here in the U.S. under under Cajun cookers or Bayou Classic. They are all made in China and always have been. Now that's the thing. I've said before about China bashing. I am not interested in it. What I'll also say is Lodge or any American manufacturer, they simply never made Dutch ovens and big pots as large as those Asian-made jambalaya pots. They simply never made them. I mean, yes, granted, these vintage cauldrons here were made in the United States up until about the early 20th century, and then they just stopped making them because they didn't sell. That's because, of course, American innovation, well, really made these huge pots obsolete. I mean, these pots here were originally used for two reasons: cooking and washing clothes. Those were the two biggest things that they used these pots for. And just think about that. There were indeed poor families that washed their clothes and ate out of the same pot because they couldn't afford another one. But hey, that's how it was. Anyway, but you consider two things that over time. Number one, for cooking. Of course, as you know, cooking stoves became popular in the later 18th century, and they changed the design and look of cookware forever, which is why you simply didn't have these huge pots for cooking anymore, because they would not fit on a cooking stove. Instead, of course, you have smaller flat bottom pots and skillets. And the modern Dutch ovens, the kitchen Dutch ovens, that is, not even the coal Dutch ovens, and all of the different cast iron pots, all of which again made it unnecessary to have a big pot like this. The other thing that made these big pots obsolete were, of course, washing machines, because again, if you had a washing machine, well, you certainly didn't need a big pot like this to wash your clothes in. So those two big markets right there, cooking and clothes washing, both of which as I said, these pots were essentially obsolete by the early 20th century, and so they simply stopped. Whoops, sorry about that. They simply stopped making these big pots because of that. And that's just how it goes. Things change. And so because of that, if you want a big, huge cast iron pot like this, you have two choices. You either find yourself a vintage cast iron pot, which you can do. They are not too hard to find. The hard part, of course, is finding one that isn't ridiculously expensive. Usually it's like several $100 or $1,000 or something for a big vintage American pot like this. Or, of course, you go the Asian route and you get yourself a brand new or even used jambalaya pot from any number of suppliers. Bayou Classic, Cajun cookers, King Cooker, and so on. And again, if that's what you choose, if you decide to get yourself a big Asian jambalaya pot, have fun with it. Cook some great food in it, because again, the one problem with Asian cast iron is the politics, and which I myself do not get into. So because of that, I can only say, and I'll have to keep saying it, and I will keep saying it, that Asian cast iron is fine for cooking. If you have political reasons not to use or own Asian cast iron, then you can do so. That's your opinion, and again, I'm not going to force my opinion on anyone. However, even if you don't like Asian cast iron, it's still safe to cook with. Thus ends my little lecture, and I'm sorry it went on so long like that. So, yeah. Bob asks, I think my grandmother's mother kept a cauldron full of hot water by the fireplace for bath water each day. Oh, yeah, okay, I can say that. Baths, too. I mean, granted, of course, they had bathtubs because, even a huge pot like this, it's really not big enough for a grown man to bathe in. He could if need be, but that's why most places just had wash tubs as opposed to cooking pots. So that must be a mighty tender way to swallow wit out of chewing. Oh, some of the carnivore diet people cut liver into small pieces, freeze it, and swallow it like a pill. Well, more power to them. I'm reminding not to try the carnivore diet. Okay, yeah, turtle is good. I just hate knowing I'm eating it. That's another delicacy, really cheap but high. This Midnight found me, Debbie. Oh yeah, I love liver and onions with brown gravy. Yeah, every time somebody posts a picture of liver and onions to the Cast Iron Cooking Group, it starts a huge ruckus. It's always people saying the same thing. Ugh, blah, liver and onions, get it out of here. Well, tough tushies, folks. I mean, really, it's like if that's what people want to cook in their cast iron, that's what they can cook. I mean, it's one of the silliest things I see online, and it still happens all the time, is what boils down to, how dare you cook something that I don't like in your cast iron? Well, tough tushies, like I said. If you don't like it, don't eat it, or don't look at it. Okay, Asian cast iron isn't much worse than Lodge anymore. It is rougher, but I prefer Victoria for a pre-seasoned piece. Yes, mentioned that Victoria cast iron, which is made in, I believe, Venezuela or Colombia. And apparently they're doing pretty good business too. I have actually seen Victoria pieces. I have not yet owned one of them. No, that's not true. I have a Victoria tortilla press. So even there. And Joseph Ortiz, you guys, liver and onions are gross. I don't care about the cookware. All bad. Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. Chicken liver is better than beef. I guess it all depends on how you cook it. I mean, in a lot of cases, people just simply take their gizzards and they fry them up. Which again comes down to what somebody was saying earlier tonight. Dirty rice. Yeah, and if I've done dirty rice. I've got a recipe for dirty rice on my website, and I also, boy, look at this. I mean, you can actually see me in the background here. I like this because of this microphone here, and also, as I mentioned before, I like the view of this new camera. So yeah, I'm happy with this. The camera is a Logitech Brio, B-R-I-O. I'm not being paid to promote it, but I mean, considering this is my first time using it here in this live, I'm enjoying it very much. And I lost track now. Oh yeah, dirty rice. That's it. Dirty rice, I guess, is an example here of just that, using chicken gizzards, which you don't have to use if you don't want to. As I said, I have a recipe for dirty rice. I've got a video on my channel of dirty rice. Just look it up, dirty rice. And the one I make is actually pretty tame because I don't use the chicken gizzards in it. Nonetheless, dirty rice is pretty a simple jambalaya. Basically, it is jambalaya without most of the ingredients, without the meat, unless you want to put meat in it, and without the Trinity, unless you want to put the Trinity in it. So, nice and versatile. How does the new Logitech work for Skype and Teams calls at work? I don't know. I haven't used it for that yet. I got it especially to improve these live videos here. But I will certainly find out ASAP, I think. Although my understanding is that this Brio here is made, this kit webcam is in fact especially made for work conferences. So and again, it got very high ratings, which is why I wanted to try it, and I'm liking it a lot. So I guess if you're considering a webcam for your video conferencing, I'd say this would be a good one. But then again, Logitech is a very good brand, and I've been using it for probably since I started using computers. So I mean, I've always loved Logitech mice, and their webcams are great as well. So, okay. You should make bear stew sometime. Well, if I can ever get some bear meat. There is actually, well, no, that's right. I live in New York now. I don't live in Massachusetts. I was about to say there is a famous meat market in Cambridge, Massachusetts called Savory's that regularly has imported meat. And if I was able to get if there was any place to get bear meat, there would be the place to go. I saw them selling ostrich meat there for like $75 a pound, not cents. Otherwise, I would have gotten it. It was there that I discovered wild boar. Oh, wild boar is delicious, actually. And yeah, if you have the chance to get some wild boar, please get it and cook it and try it. It is, how can I describe wild boar? Call it like an extreme pork. I don't mean more fat or the like. I mean, the pork flavor seems to be more intense with wild boar. So yeah, I love me some wild boar. I disappeared in a minute. Yeah, there's a learning curve, but good bear stew is pretty awesome. Well, as I said, I'm definitely going to have to consider that. So, Hippie Longshanks, I need a better cam for the PC. I'm the IT guy, but my current one is awful. Just want to look better. Well, yeah, I know any little thing helps, especially as far as keeping your job goes. Don't take that the wrong way. I'm just meaning that as, just lighthearted, friendly commentary, and that's all. But yeah, as I said, so far this camera is, I don't know if you call it love at first sight, but I can definitely say I'm happy with it. All right, I mix beef and chicken liver with butter and cream cheese to make a pate. Only way I can eat it. Best liver I've ever had was pork. Yeah, gizzards are tender enough, not fall apart tender, but I love the flavor. Wild boar is like pork on steroids. Yes, exactly. Or I guess you could call it like the difference between domestic pork, pigs, and wild boar or wild pork. So yeah. That kind of reminds me of that time I made a goose for Christmas. Several years ago, I wanted to go the old style, and for Christmas, instead of making a turkey, I found in the store. I didn't hunt it myself. I'm no hunter. I got a goose, and I cooked that. The interesting thing about the goose is that it was all dark meat. Even the breasts were essentially dark meat. I mean, I guess because goose is a wild bird. It's not domesticated. It's not raised and bred for fat or more meat. So it's all muscle. So that goose was an interesting bird to cook too, but I liked it. And it had a unique flavor of its own. It definitely did not taste like chicken. I think it did have more of a turkey taste to it. But no, it did not taste like chicken. Yeah, definitely food seems to be the topic of discussion for tonight. Yeah, how did you like goose? As I said, I liked it. I mean, again, it had more like a turkey type of flavor than it was definitely not chicken. Okay, then let me bring up another one that people know about. Duck. A couple of times I've made a roast duck and I have enjoyed the heck out of it. But my very first time trying duck was at a restaurant. And they must have poorly cooked that duck because it had a very gamey flavor to it. And it turned me off of duck. until several years later when I learned how to cook, and I actually cooked my own duck and did a pretty good job of it too. I again have my roast duck video on my channel and my roast duck recipe on my website. It's a simple roasted duck. I have not yet had the courage or the time to try doing Peking duck, which they say is the ultimate duck or the ultimate poultry recipe. I have not yet had a chance to do that. My roasted duck was much simpler, but I liked it, and I'm very proud to have done it, and I'm happy to be able to serve anyone that recipe for roast duck. How is that? How they get tender? Crock pot them? Yeah. Well, slow cooking should be able to tenderize anything if you cook it long enough. I make duck on the grill like a beer can chicken. Most of the fat drips off. Oh yes, duck fat. That's got that gold, the gold standard of cooking fats. I mean, as much as we love our lard and our bacon grease, it's like whenever you talk about a really fancy cooking fat, they always say duck fat. And yeah, I remember when I made my duck fat for Christmas, I ended up with like maybe about half a cup or so of duck fat left over, which I guess you could call another Christmas present in itself. And I was happy to make it, to use that. Don't forget our old friend Donald. Wild duck is much stronger than tame duck. Okay, Huggy Bear, I got a 14-inch 3-notch lodge. Oh, good. Congratulations. If you haven't already gotten some use out of it, I know you will get some use out of it, especially because the holidays are coming. And yes, I am so glad to be able to cook a turkey in my cast iron. I think it is the world's best turkey roasting pan. And I've made enough turkey roasting videos, and I'm gonna have to do another one this year to see how it turns out, because hey, I've got something new. I've got a gas oven, and now I can actually cook my turkey in a gas oven and see how it turns out. So yeah, I am looking forward to that. That's probably going to be one of the first things I do once Halloween is over. 14-inch 3-notch lodge. And I hope you got a good price on it too. I mean, even though the cost of everything seems to be going up, I think those large ones, you can still manage to get a decent price for them, because the antique vendors just think, oh, they're not Griswold. So, okay. I got a Finex Dutch oven. Wow. Well, congratulations, John S. I understand they've only just recently released a 3-quart Dutch oven to go with their 5-quart Dutch oven. And I presume the lids must be interchangeable, because that would, of course, make sense. Let's turn over to here, because I can see we've got some steam, a little bit of steam coming from this thing. I know this is not going to be done. Well, there is a chance it could be done in time. Let's see how it's turned out, though. I don't think it's been an hour yet. In fact, I believe we're only at like maybe a little more than half an hour. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be done in time, because after an hour or so, I'm going to have to actually reduce it. But well, we definitely have a stew going on here. That's for sure. This thing is simmering nicely, but I am also going to have to reduce it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So there we go. We're off to a decent start here. So I guess I could say bubble, bubble. No, actually, I'm wrong. Double, double toil and trouble, because that is actually what the witches of Macbeth were doing. They were casting a spell. They were casting a curse, in fact. They were casting a spell to cause mayhem and trouble and suffering. So it's not bubble, bubble, although they did say cauldron bubble somewhere in their little monologue. I don't have it memorized. But the whole thing was double, double toil and trouble. That's what it meant. They were really out to cause trouble. So I'm still not at the point yet where I can just reduce this. But I'm glad to see this poiki is still getting some use here. And that means I guess we could turn the point of view back to our bigger pots. Besides these, of course, as I mentioned already, I have my Dutch ovens, which I do consider to be cauldrons, even the enameled ones. And I think last week I even gave a shot of this little guy here. This, in fact, is a made in China, but it really is a cast iron ashtray, and I'm glad to have had this so that when company who smoke come to visit, yeah, here's a little marking for it, for instance. When company who smoke come to visit, I can actually let them use this as an ashtray, so that I don't have to let them use my skillet ashtrays. Because no, even though those ashtray skillets were made as ashtrays, no, I'm not going to use them for that. I don't know. I guess it's just too sentimental. In the pot wreck, Trouble. Where is Trouble? Yeah, Trouble is. Oh, I saw him snooze right now. Oh yeah. Oh, good, he's not. He was curled up on my laptop bag, but now he's not. I'm guessing he's probably upstairs, curled up on the bed. But yeah, no, Trouble is doing. He's doing fine, actually. I mean, he and Miss Mobley are really out and about, and I'm really proud of how Trouble has become such an outgoing and friendly cat too. I would gladly introduce him to kids if and when they come to visit. The one thing, and I have nobody but myself to blame for this, is that after spending the spring and half the summer as an outdoor cat, I have been keeping Trouble inside as I've gotten used to my new place. And he's gotten used to the new place, and he really wants to go outside. He is regularly pawing at the windows. He wants to go out. But because the cold weather is coming, I mean, just this morning was the first frost, in fact, I've decided I'm going to keep the cats in for the winter. And finally, probably maybe when spring comes, we're talking like the end of next March or so, then I will make them a cat door, and then I will let them go out. So, only thing is, Trouble doesn't like that. He wants to go out. And I have to keep telling him that I know, even though I'm the one keeping him inside. Okay, where did I just my mouse? Oh, here it is. So, oh, the knives displayed on that rack. Yeah, someone has commented already that he wants me to move, or she wants me to move these knives from this rack over to a wall because she feels that it's still possibly dangerous that someone could walk into these, and I hope that does not happen. So I am considering relocating it onto the wall. Did I see a notice? Are we having transmission problems again? I hope not. I thought I saw a little pop-up notice of some kind on the video here. If any smoking company come over to my place, they will need to go smoke outside. The Mudbrooker got snow already. Yeah, we are unfortunately getting into that time of year. Yeah, it was 28 degrees, and it's the first time I've seen the temperature below 30 since I've moved in here. But, well, again, winter is coming. So all I can do is buckle down for it. And I just realized, I've got myself a garage for the very first time. I should actually move my car into the garage. What a concept. Okay. All right, Chairman, CEO, and Sergeant in Argolia is talking about Trouble. That's right. China-made cast iron for an ashtray. That's about it. Well, yeah, there is that. I mean, I realize a lot of people consider Chinese cast iron to be disposable, which is one reason why some people have two sets of cast iron: kitchen cast iron and camping cast iron. As I like to say as well, if you have cast iron and camping cast iron, and never will the two come together, you might have cast ironitis. Because, of course, it would be much easier to accidentally lose or destroy a Walmart Ozark Trail skillet out in the middle of the woods than if that were to happen to a Griswold, for example. How did your lawn mowing go for the first time? I wimped out and I paid someone to mow the lawn. So, And I'm hoping it's enough at least. Now that we've got the first frost, I'm hoping that's going to stop the grass from growing at least until next spring. Smokers can go outside. Yes, I agree there as well. I grew, yeah, in that even though I do have a cast iron ashtray, they will not smoke in the house. I grew up with with a family of chain smokers, and that is not going to happen in my place. It has buffered a few times recently. Oh dear, I'm sorry to hear that. Are we doing any better at this point? When were the small Griswolds made? Are they post-Wagner buyout? No, they were just before that. The history goes that Griswold introduced the small logo pans in the early 1940s. And they lasted from the 1940s through the 1950s when the buyout happened in 1957. So there is actually a good 15 to maybe 20 years worth of history for the small logo Griswold. Collectors seem to say that the small logo Griswold is not as valuable as the large logo Griswold, probably because it's just not older. But on the other hand, it's still a Griswold, and yet even the small logo ones, of course, they're wonderful cookers in the kitchen. I have a few small logo Griswolds myself in my collection, and I'm glad to use them when the opportunity comes up. In Montana, they were 76 degrees today, but no one pays my electric bill, so I love it. Praying for global warming in Europe now. Yeah, there's the thing. Global warming. I'm for it for that reason. I hate winter weather. And that's all I'm going to say there. Have a puff, puff, pass moment. Okay. Oh, there you are, Moki. Hey, Moki. Okay, well, even though Trouble hasn't shown up, let's say hi, I think, to another member of the family here. Let's see. Hello, Miss Mobley. Here she is. She probably came down because she wants her tweets. So, Mobley is always going to be the shy one, unfortunately, but I'm glad at least we've coaxed her to come out in the open regularly, and she even comes to see visitors. 15 feet of snow. Well, I certainly hope not. I mean, I know you can get that in the Buffalo area, but I'm still a few hours away from Buffalo. So I'm expecting this winter, quite frankly, to be not too different from New England. So. All right. We are getting on in our time here as well. And they granted, of course, cauldrons. Well, as I asked already, I'm hoping there are some folks here out in this chat who do actually have been lucky enough to use a cauldron in their cooking, because, of course, again, they say that cauldrons are most commonly associated with, well, Halloween. And so this next week or so before Halloween, of course, is a great time to break out your cauldron and do some special cooking. Whether you have something especially for Halloween, or if you're just going to do a nice big pot of stew, like I'm doing here with this bunny chow, which I still encourage folks to try, because, as I said, it's a nice, simple, and very tasty stew, especially when served in a bread bowl. It's easy to make, and I would very much like to see this thing spread around in the United States. Not because of me, but because it is a really good and very yummy stew. But in regards to your cauldrons, as I said, go ahead and break them out. Use them for trick-or-treating. Use them for holiday cooking, because you've got, of course, Halloween, where you can stew up a potion. And then, of course, we've got Thanksgiving coming up, whether it's Canadian or American Thanksgiving. And then finally, of course, the big holiday coming up at the end of December, where just about anything goes. All of these are a good reason to break out a cast iron cauldron, whether it's for sentimental reasons or just because you want to cook a lot of food. Because in the end, that's really the best use for these things. I definitely at some point soon, after I use this for my Halloween candy, I'm hoping to use this and deep fry myself a chicken, a whole chicken. It's been years since I've done that, and that probably wouldn't be a bad thing to do either. So, every cauldron I find that's a decent, manageable size seems to be drilled. Oh yeah, on my condolences, and yeah, I know that feeling too. It's like, gee, what do you do with it? You make it a planter. Well, if worst comes to worst, it is possible to repair these cauldrons. In that, it's possible to have maybe a little piece of metal or steel or even iron welded to cover up the hole. I do believe that's been done in a few cases. Finding a whole cauldron, though, would be a real score, and I can only wish you the best of luck for that. So, fill it up with your pocket change. Well, as a matter of fact, hey, good point. Let me bring this one out right now. This one is over in the living room, and here it is. I don't show this one very often because it's got an interesting history in itself. Look at that, it's full of pocket change. And this one, in fact, is a gate mark. It says 3, it says number 3 size, and it's a pretty common gate marked pot. And in fact, I think I've told this story before. Originally, the inside of this pot was enameled. This was an enameled cast iron, one of those 19th century pots with a bare iron outside and an enamel inside. Well, the enamel, of course, was cracking and coming apart, and so definitely it could not be used in that condition. And more importantly, it's been pointed out, and I should point out again, those pots in particular should never be used for cooking. I'm talking about those cast iron pots with a nailed inside with a gate mark in the 19th century, because it was well known that in those days manufacturers regularly used lead in the enamel glaze. So, besides the fact that the enamel, of course, is always cracking and missing big pieces. And if you try cooking in one of those, you would be guaranteed to get big flakes of enamel in your food, which is not good. There's the lead consideration as well. And so that, in this case, I actually took that pot and had it sandblasted to completely remove the enamel on the inside. And I only use it for my pocket change. I will never ever cook in that. In fact, sometime before I pass away, I'm going to have to either destroy that one or maybe get a Dremel or something and actually mark lead on it. So, yeah, a new homeowner left with pocket change. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. It's taken a long time, but that's about all I can say. Next time you make bunny chow, you should wear a Harvey costume. Yeah, say hi to Jimmy Stewart for me. Yes, I recognize reference. So, they would have turkeys as a loss leader for Thanksgiving. Those days are gone. Well, it's hard to say. Even with the way prices rose over the last couple of years, I still managed to find cheap turkey at the big supermarkets, at Price Chopper and Stop and Shop. Even Wally World had turkey for like 89 cents a pound in a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. And I guess that's not bad for Wally World, but over at Price Chopper, they actually did have it for about 50 or 60 cents a pound. So if you wait long enough, you probably will still be able to get a cheap turkey. Of course, there's no law that requires you to use turkey, folks. Turkey is wonderful and it's delicious, and if you can get it cheap, I definitely recommend it, but you don't have to. I mean, I guess maybe unless you have kids who are expecting turkey. But otherwise, there's no reason why you couldn't simply cook your favorite food for Thanksgiving. For several years before I actually learned how to cook, I'm sorry to say, for several years, we actually got Chinese takeout for Thanksgiving. So because we wanted to spend that day relaxing and not spending the entire day cooking. That wasn't a bad idea. And yeah, I will admit we liked relaxing. However, now I prefer to cook for Thanksgiving because I love making turkeys in my cast iron. So I will definitely do my best to get another turkey video out before Thanksgiving. And I'll buy 6 and stock my freezer. Butterball recalled their turkeys. Well, I'll have to look that up and see what's going on. They forgot to. Okay. But anyway, as I said, folks, now is really a good time to break out your cauldron and show it off. Whether you post it online, which I love to do, and I hope you do too, or whether you just simply cook with it, or decorate it for Christmas, or do whatever you do. I mean, if you've got yourself a cast iron cauldron, I'll be proud, because that means you're one of the few and the proud, the cauldron owners. And make sure you're a cauldron user as well. Whether you use your cauldron for casting spells and mixing potions, or simmer pots for that matter, which is essentially another kind of potpourri. Potpourri is another kind of simmer pot, sorry. Or whether you're going to make yourself a huge pot of jambalaya or mulligan stew for these coming holidays, which are also great, or Brunswick stew, then go ahead and do so. That's really what I would encourage folks to do more than anything else, because, I mean, as I've said enough times, the biggest thing about this cooking is that it's a lot of fun. Having and owning and using these pots is a lot of fun, and that, I feel, is the best reason to have them. I mean, they make great display pieces, yes, and I could show them off and brag about them on the internet, but really, the biggest thing is using them, and especially having fun, and that's really what it comes down to. So I make high bush cranberry jelly that I'll be serving in Thanksgiving. That sounds pretty good, Terry. Maybe you should send a recipe. Let's see how it looks. How is the large blacklock skillet? I actually haven't had a chance to break it in yet, but I intend to do so this weekend. We've got pancakes and omelets and anything else coming up. And that's yet another thing I'm looking forward to do. I hope you don't have a poltergeist and knives don't look safe. I'm not worried about poltergeists. In fact, I really hope my home is haunted. So I have a friend who does tarot readings, and she said that there are several old spirits living in this place, in which case I'm really looking forward to meeting them. Or as somebody else said, dear ghosts, if you can turn lights on and off and move stuff, you can use a mop. So okay, getting onto that time. Yeah, work comes early, Neches River catfishing. Yeah, we are getting to about that time. I will say, I buy a very small turkey and cook it in a rotisserie oven. Well, again, I would say just really cook what you like. So don't think you have to make turkey if you don't like it. However, I guess I'll bring us to one more shot of something that I do like, and I think it's about time for me to uncover this anyway and simmer it for at least half an hour or so to reduce it. Because here is our bunny chow. Let me put this lid aside. The cauldron is bubbling. And really, now is indeed a good time for a spell of plenty. And why not? Nothing like good wishes for everybody concerned. And with that, I think all I can say as well is, everybody, thank you very much for showing up here. I mean, I say this every week because I mean it every week. Having you folks here on this channel or in these live videos are really what makes these so much fun. So, I mean, I could cook these. I could just do videos for who knows how long, and that's certainly what I intend to do. But these live videos especially, again, it's the companionship. It's having you folks here to chat with, and I say with, not to, is what really makes these things so much fun. And I'm definitely intend to keep on doing this until it's not fun, and which hopefully will be never. But that's largely because of you folks showing up, and I can only thank everybody for showing up here again and again and again, and especially thanks to new folks as well. I mean, I can see, hello, Bets. How are you going to store the bunny stew? Oh, that's easy enough. All I have to do is put it in bowls and keep it in the fridge for a few days. But what I'm actually going to be doing when this is done is serving this in bread bowls. Or actually take simply a loaf of bread, cut it, and then hollow it out and serve the bunny chow in that. So yeah, this stuff freezes well. Indeed it does. After all, it's a chicken and potato curry stew. It will freeze, and there shouldn't be any problem at all with that. So, but thank you everybody for showing up here, and I hope you enjoyed, well, seeing the cauldrons and talking about the cauldrons. And again, I will say one last time, bunny chow, look it up, give the recipe a try, because I think you'll enjoy it. It's cheap, it's easy to make, and I think it's something that even kids will love. And thank you everybody as well for Val's Black Cat's Rolls and Hippie Longshanks, and hello Dano Ozark and Buckshot Mick, and late nights made it just under the wire. Yes, and have a great week yourself as well. And Janet Bautista are going to store most of it in his tummy. I certainly hope so. Good night, Cast Iron Fanatic, and Terry Sinchef and everybody else. I can't imagine cooking ever not being fun. Well, I think the main reason is that I work a full-time job, and this is stress relief. Doing it for a living, there can be times when it's not fun, and I guess that's why I'm never going to be a chef. But thank you, and thank you as well, Midnight Lacey, William Hurt, and Cynthia Wesley, Honey Badger, and everybody else. It's nice seeing you all, and I can only look forward to seeing you again, whether it's next week or maybe hopefully before then. But until then, thank you everybody for showing up, and we'll see you all next Wednesday.